Hi, welcome back. This is Mark, and today we're going to discuss about computer network subnetting. So, as a form of review, subnetting, which is also known as subnetworking, is actually making it possible, or subnetting makes it possible to break down a large and unwieldy networks into ones that are more compact and localized by splitting the main networks into two or more strands or two or more subnetwork. So subnetting is actually the process of dividing a network into two or more networks. So we have an example here for a task that we need to subnet. So one day your supervisor walks to you and says, my network ID is 192.168.4.0/24. And I need you to create three networks for my CKT office. One for marketing, one for sales, and one for the accounting. Your task is to list each subnetwork. For each subnetwork, its network ID, the subnet mask, the host ID range, and the number of usable host IDs, and the broadcast ID. So this is what's given and what's required from the problem that we have for the given. We were given the network ID of 192.168.4.0/24, or the subnet mask for that network is /24, and we were required to, out of the network ID, is we're going to subdivide that or form a subnetwork of three. Okay, three groups or three subnetworks, and within those networks we need to also supply for each the network ID, subnet mask, host ID range, number of usable hosts IDs, and the broadcast ID. So I pulled up an Excel a spreadsheet so that we would be able to put this in a tabular format and for you to understand this better. So the method that I'll be teaching you on how to compute for the subnets is adapted from Mr. Sunny. Credits to him, because this is an alternative computation on how to solve for the subnet from the standard one. The standard one is a little bit lengthy, but this one is going to be very easy to remember and easier to understand. Okay, so the first step is we're going to create a subnetting table, of which it would also be easier to remember, where your table will be composed of the subnet, the host, and the subnet mask. So the question is, what's gonna be inputted on the blank fields? Okay, so this is easy to remember because we're just going to fill this up with starting with 1, and then you just multiply it by 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32, 32 times 2 is 64, 64 times 2 is 128, and 128 times 2 is 256. So that will be for the subnet. Okay, we start with 1 and then reach up to 256. For the hosts, we'll do this the opposite direction. So it's going to be 1 and then 2 and then 4 and then 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and finally is 256. And then for the subnet mask, we start with the /24. So /24, /25. Let's just autofill this. up to /32. Okay, so I hope you still remember what the subnet mask /24/25 means. This is a slash notation of the subnet mask. So just a quick review. /24 actually means that you have the 255.255.255.0 subnet mask. Why? Because, say for example, 255. Okay, let's have this 255.255.25. So this is the subnet mask. So how did we arrive to the /24? Because the 255, 255, 255, and 0, if you convert that to the 8-bit binary code, so 255 actually is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so same goes for this, and then this is 0. So if you count those ones, you have 8 ones here, you have 8 ones here, you have 8 ones here. You actually have 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24. So that's why it's /24. Now for /25, that means this is going to be now, this is now going to be, there's going to be 1 here. Okay, for that is, this is for 255, 255, that's 0. Let's just copy and paste it here. So if it's going to be /25, this is /24. And this is, let's have this as /25. Okay, just for you to not forget about this. So that means this is going to be, for the binary, is going to be 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 25 ones. That is, this is /25. So that means this is also going to be, this is going to be what? This is not 255, 255, that's 255 dot. So this 0 is actually going to be 128. So I won't explain the whole process because we have a video that is devoted to this, and this is that's the previous video that I have uploaded, which was on subnet masks /notation. So please check out that video if you'd like to understand the whole process. Okay, so going back to our subnetting, now I'm going to erase this so that you won't get confused. So going back to what was given to us, this is 192.168.4.0, and we were required to create 3 subnets or 3 subnetworks. So from the table, of course, we're going to check out the subnet part here. So the table actually means that for one subnet, you have 256 hosts, and you have this subnet mask. And if you have 2 subnets, you will have this number of hosts. Okay. The hosts, that means that you have this number of IP addresses for each. Okay, for each subnetworks. Okay, so for each, so you have actually 256 for each of this. I'm sorry, all in all you have 256. Okay, because you have 128 for each subnets, and then the subnet mask for that is /25. So if you were required for 4 subnets, you will have 64 hosts for each network, and you will have this subnet mask. So for our particular problem, what we're required of is the 3 subnetworks or 3 subnets. Now for this, if you check on the subnet part, we don't have the 3. Okay, so what we're going to choose is the one where 3 fits in. Of course, which is not 2, because 2 is going to be short of 1 network. So of course, the next one is 4. So we're going to choose this column. Okay, so we're going to choose now this column. We're just going to highlight it. So after that, since we have identified that for this particular requirement, we're going to follow this column. So there will be 4 subnets, and then we have for each subnet we have 64 hosts, and this is the subnet mask. So all we need to do is just create another table for this and for for this data. Okay, so let's create another table. So I'm just gonna put it down here. So network ID. Next is subnet mask. Next is host ID range. Next is number of usable hosts, and then the broadcast ID. Sorry, you can see it on your screen. Let me just move it here this way. So here's the table. You just adjust that. So here are the information that we need, and we need to get it from here. Okay, so next is we were required for 3 networks or 3 subnets, 1, 2, and 3, but of course we actually have a spare of 4. We're just going to provide the other the extra network, but what we're required of is to produce these fields here. Okay, so from here we can now fill up this table. And okay, let's start but with the network ID. So what do you think is the network ID for the first subnet? Okay, so the first network ID, of course, is the one that's given, which is the, what's that? The 192.168.4.0. Okay, let me just move this here so that you can see. So that's 192.168.4.0. That's then the first network ID. So we're just going to fill up this column here first because it's easier for us to do that since we know what the data is here. So this is the, just move that here. This is subnetwork ID. I'm sorry, this is a subnet, okay, and then the host, number of hosts, and then the subnet mask. So let's do that. So let's just fill up the next network ID. How do we fill up the network ID? Because of the number of hosts, that's 64. So we just add 64 on the last, which is 0. So 192.168.4.0. So 0 plus 64 is 64, right? So 192.168.4.64. Let me just move this a little bit. There. And then, of course, 64 plus 64 plus 64. Okay? So 192.168.4.64 plus 64 is 128. And then finally, 128 plus 64 is 192. 192.168.4.192. Okay, so we have filled up the network ID, and then the subnet mask. What's a subnet mask? Here's the subnet mask. It's /26. Okay, so all we have to do is just fill that up. So with /26. So they are under, all of them are under /26 subnet mask. Sorry, it was / just copy paste it there. Okay, so we're done with the network ID, subnet mask, and the next part is the broadcast ID. That's easy. Okay, let me just show you that. So we have the network ID now, you have the subnet mask, and then the broadcast ID. So how do we get the broadcast ID? Okay, we just subtract 1 from the next subnetwork or the next subnet. So that means it's less than one of this, so that means it's 63. Okay, so you get the idea. That's the last IP address on that network. That's why we subtract it with 1. So that's 192.168.4.63. So for this, for the next one, we subtract 1 from the 128, so 127. 192.168.4.127. And then for the 128, so for this one is 192 minus 1 is 191. 192.168.4.191. And then finally for the 192, so we add 64 here minus 1. I'm sorry. So we add here so that we would be able to get this. So we add 192 plus 64 is 256. So 256 minus 1, so 255. So this is going to be 192.168.4.255. Okay, so broadcast ID is filled up. Next is the usable hosts, okay, and the host ID range. So the usable hosts actually are the ones that we can assign to the clients or the computers or to the users, okay, to the users of the network, because the first and the last will not be available for those users. Okay, so all in all, this is from 0 to 63. That's actually 64. But the ones that we can assign to the users or usable hosts will only be what's left. So we remove the .0 and the .63 of from the 64. Remember, we have a total of 64. So the formula for usable hosts is we remove 2 IP addresses. So we remove the network ID and the broadcast ID, which leaves us with this usable hosts. So that means 64 minus 2. So 64 minus 2 is 62. So same for this, of course, because we have the same subnet. So 62 and then 62. Okay, so basically, again, from the 64, we subtract it with 2. So, or if you fall under this column, for the usable host, you subtract 2 from the 32, and so on and so forth. Now, for the host ID range, now this is the actual IP addresses that the users can use. So that means we start with plus 1, we add 1 from the network ID, and we subtract. The last one is going to be subtracted 1 of this. So that means 0 plus 1, 0 plus 1 is 1. So 192.168.4.1 till remember these are the IP addresses that we give to the users. And then for the last one is 192.168.4 that we subtract 1 from the 63, which is 62. Okay, so 192.168.4.1 and 192.168.4.62 because we subtract here 1. And then let's just fill this up. Just gonna copy paste it and just rename. So for this, let me remove all of those first so that you will understand and you will not get confused. So for this, plus 1 of the 64, so 65 for that 65, and then minus 1 of the 127, so 126. And then for this is 128 plus 1 is 129. And then 191 minus 1 is 190. And then for the last one is 192 minus 1 plus 1 is 193. And for the last one is 255 minus 1 is 254. Okay, so that's it. We have accomplished everything that was required, and that we were required to create 3 subnets. Actually, we even provided extra. Okay, so there's an extra subnet, which is the last one, or you could actually choose any of the 4 and have 3. So you could use this and this and this, or whichever the network IP admin would prefer. Okay, so with just a simple table that we've created from what was given, okay, so what was given was this, and then what we were required to produce was 3 subnets or 3 subnetworks with the following details. And what we did was created a table, a subnetting table, credits to Mr. Sunny, and from there we were able to generate this information. Okay, so I hope you were not able to see that. So this one, okay, from this we were able to generate the details. Okay, so I hope you understood the explanation. This is a very good alternative from the standard computation of subnets, and it's detailed because this is easier to remember and compute and understand. So thank you for your time, and thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.